Just when it felt like they had found some stability, it was all taken away. Will Colorado be able to overcome all these offseason obstacles in 2020? Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, the best kept secret in all of college football. Today, bringing you our 2020 Colorado Buffaloes college football predictions. As always, guys, make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, and share our videos. And also make sure to check out everything down in the description below, where you can visit our official website, thegridironexpert.com, and also follow us on social media over on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So guys, last year, it felt like Colorado had found their head coach of the future. A guy that in just a few years could transform the Buffaloes program into a Pac-12 title contender, a perennial bowl team. Mel Tucker arrived in Boulder and went 5-7 in 2019. Not necessarily a great year, but pretty solid by Colorado standards. They went 3-6 in conference play. They were competitive with 3 losses by 1 possession, including a 4-point loss to USC, and they also had some quality wins over Arizona State and Washington. Mel Tucker seemed to be the man in Boulder, and he seemed to be sticking around for a long time. But then February hit, and Mark D'Antonio stepped down at Michigan State, and the Spartans, in a mad dash to find a quality head coach, came over to Boulder and took Mel Tucker away from Colorado, despite him persistently saying that he was staying in Boulder to coach the Buffaloes. It's very, very controversial. But nonetheless, Mel Tucker is gone, and now Colorado has hired Karl Dorrell, a man who has not coached in college since 2007. He coached UCLA from 2003 to 2007, going 35-27 during those 5 seasons. But luckily for Colorado, they get Dorrell, who has college coaching experience, who has tons of experience within the NFL as position coaches, and also was connected to Colorado, having served on their staff back in the 1990s. So Dorrell, not necessarily the big name hire that people wanted, but maybe not the worst of hires either. When you look at Colorado going into this season, though, guys, the fact that they had to deal with all these offseason obstacles, the fact they lose their head coach, they lose their star quarterback in Steven Montez, they lose their star wide receiver in Laviska Shenault, it almost seems like a lost cause for Colorado in 2020. Their offense returns 6 starters, but like we said, loses Montez and Shenault, their 2 biggest playmakers. You're going to have a quarterback competition here, but it's going to more than likely go to Tyler Lytle, the junior QB who has experience in the system and with the program. He likely has a solid running back in Alex Fontenot, who had 874 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns last year, and a capable wide receiver as well in KD Nixon, who had 465 yards and 3 touchdowns last year. The offense only averaged 23.5 points per game, and I'd expect it to be around that same mark, if not a little bit lower, going into 2020. When you take a look at their defense, that's going to be the strength for Colorado this season. That's what's going to bail them out of a few games this year. They allowed 31.8 points per game last year, had the 123rd ranked passing defense in the country last year, so not very good at all. But Dorrell made a fantastic choice by retaining defensive coordinator Tyson Summers. So Summers is sticking around to coach the defense for the Buffaloes, and with 7 returning starters on that side of the ball, with Mustafa Johnson up front, Nate Landman at linebacker, Terrence Lang as well on the defensive line with 5.5 sacks, this Buffaloes unit has a chance to bail out the struggles that might come on offense. So we take a look at Colorado's schedule here, guys. It's very, very difficult. Just right off the bat, you'll see they've got the game against Oregon, of course. Arizona State, a South contender. At Washington, at USC, at Stanford. It's not very favorable for a first-year head coach out in Boulder. And we're going to predict all 12 games here, guys. We know the Pac-12 has canceled all non-conference games. But like we've done for every Power 5 school, we will include what we believe their non-conference wins and losses would have been in our final record projection. And of course, we'll come out with updated records later on when we finally have a plan for this upcoming season. So we take a look at their schedule here, guys. We have them starting 2-1 We believe they would have gone on the road to take on Colorado State and defeated the Rams, who also have a brand new head coach in Steve Adazio coming over from Boston College. The game not being played in Denver, but actually at Colorado State, but we believe the Buffaloes would have taken care of business. We believe they would have taken down a very difficult Fresno State squad and then lost to Texas A&M, a former Big 12 conference matchup at College Station, and we believe the Aggies would have taken care of business there. So we jump straight into conference play. The home game against Oregon. I think we can all agree we can mark that down as a quick loss here. Oregon is the favorite in the Pac-12 this season. They won the Pac-12 in 2019, and the Buffaloes lost to Oregon 45-3 last season. And I would expect it to be a very similar result in 2020, especially with this Oregon defense, guys. Oregon's defense is going to be one of the best in the country, and you're going up against a Colorado offense that has a lot of questions across the board. I would be surprised if Colorado is able to score 6 points in this game. Oregon wins handily in this one, perhaps going all the way to win the Pac-12 title yet again. So Colorado gets an early bye week here, guys, at the very beginning of October before going into a very difficult 4-game stretch, in my opinion. Road games at Arizona, USC, and in between that, a home game against UCLA and Arizona State. We'll start with Arizona, a winnable game for Colorado. Buffaloes only fell to the Wildcats 35-30 last year, and like Colorado, Arizona had a horrible, horrible passing defense, one of the worst in the country. But I look at this. This is a big year for Kevin Sumlin. This game also might be a game between the two worst teams in the Pac-12 South. So while both teams may struggle defensively, in a defensive struggle, who's going to own the offensive edge? And that's going to be Arizona. Grant Gunnell at quarterback, very talented wide receivers returning for him. You've got Kevin Sumlin as an offensive mind here. Gunnell put up some big-time stats in very limited playing time last year, over 65% completion percentage, 9 touchdowns to just 1 interception. And I believe the Wildcats get the job done on their home turf, despite Colorado getting that week of rest here. Expected there to be a lot of points scored, though, in this one. They return home to take on UCLA and Arizona State. Last year, the Buffaloes fell to the Bruins 31-14. And that was in the midst of UCLA's wild 3-game conference winning streak. Remember, the Bruins went just 4-8. With all 4 wins came within the conference, which was wild. 3 weeks left, UCLA still controlled their own destiny in the Pac-12 South. And while I don't think UCLA is going to take this major step forward under Chip Kelly, while I don't think they're going to be Pac-12 title contenders like many wanted them to be under Chip Kelly, I look at it like this. UCLA should slightly improve. Might not be by much, but should be by just a little bit. Colorado is going to take a major step back. UCLA beat Colorado last year with a better team than Colorado will have this year. And even though the game is in Boulder, the Bruins will get the win. Colorado drops the game to the Bruins, and I believe they dropped the game to Arizona State as well. They defeated the Sun Devils somehow last year, 34-31. Back when it happened, it was not that big of an upset, but looking back, you say, wow, that was a pretty big win for Mel Tucker and the Buffaloes, defeating Herm Edwards and Jaden Daniels. But now Jaden Daniels is back for Arizona State, one of the best quarterbacks within the conference, a dangerous dual-threat quarterback, one of the top young QBs in the country. Remember, he's only a sophomore going into this season. He's got Frank Darby returning with him at the wide receiver core. A lot of young talent that I think every single week will continue to improve to help that offense. And Herm Edwards made a fantastic hire by bringing in former Cincinnati Bengals head coach Marvin Lewis to come help with that defense that returned 7 starters as well. So Arizona State, they fell to the Buffaloes at home last year. I think they come on the road to Boulder and get revenge over the Buffaloes this year, a year where the Sun Devils are legitimate Pac-12 South title contenders. They've now dropped 3 straight. We'll make it 4. We mentioned Arizona State as Pac-12 title contenders, or Pac-12 South title contenders. I would say the favorite in the South is USC. Colorado has to travel to the Coliseum. Of course, not an easy place to play, and not an easy team to face that held the 6th-ranked passing offense in the country last year. Graham Harrell's back as offensive coordinator. Keaton Slovis is back at quarterback. His top wide receivers in Amon-Ra St. Brown and Tyler Vaughns are both back. And the defense now added Todd Orlando as defensive coordinator, and they return 10 starters. So the games in the Coliseum, Colorado only fell to the Trojans by 4 last year. Let's say they quadruple that. I would be surprised if Colorado keeps this game within 2 possessions. The Trojans should coast to victory in this one. So guys, at this point, it's not looking very good. If you count the non-conference, they start off 2-0, and then they lose, what is that now, 6 straight games. So they are 2-6, got to win out to go to a bowl game, which of course is not the goal for Colorado this year. Even the Buffalo faithful know it's going to be a rough season. It's going to be a year of learning, a year of growing pains, and really a year for Karl Dorrell and his squad to realize the talent that they have, build on that, and then really hit the ground running in 2021. That's got to be the mindset if you're a Buffalo fan and a Boulder faithful. 2-6. They fall to Washington State. And I will say this, guys, that if you want to see Colorado win a conference game, it is more than likely going to come at home against UCLA or at home against Washington State. I believe those are the 2 most winnable conference games for Colorado this season, but I don't think they win either of them. I look at Washington State here, guys. They defeated Colorado 41-10 in 2019. I know Mike Leach is gone off to Mississippi State, but I do know that Nick Rolovich comes in over from Hawaii. And he's bringing in his run-and-shoot offense. And he recruited a talented run-and-shoot quarterback in Jaden DeLora over from Hawaii as well. So I think he fits perfectly into Washington State's game plan. They still have Max Borghi and a couple 2 top wide receivers returning in that offense. Their defense returns 7, and I think Rolovich puts a little more emphasis on his defense, maybe unlike what Mike Leach did. And I think the Cougars do come on the road here. Even though they'll be dealing with some changes, I don't think Colorado is 31 points better, and I don't think Washington State, despite the changes, is 31 points worse than what we saw in 2019. So Colorado drops that game. It eliminates them from bowl eligibility, from bowl contention. I believe they fall to Stanford and Washington here. 2 teams out of the North that they have to face in consecutive weeks, both on the road. We mentioned a couple quality wins last year, guys. We mentioned they almost beat USC, but they did beat Washington. They did beat Arizona State. They also beat Stanford, guys. 3 of those conference wins that we mentioned. So 3-6 in conference play, all against solid teams. But again, keep in mind that Stanford did go 4-8 last season. 4-8 last season, their first losing record since 2008. And David Shaw is not going to let that happen again. David Shaw is going to have the Cardinal bounce back. Not in a huge way, not 8, 9, 10-win season type of way, but enough to probably get them back to the postseason, as long as they stay fully healthy. So I think they fall to the Cardinal, who they beat. I think they fall to the Huskies, who they beat last year as well, defeating them 20-14. It was a very disappointing season for Chris Peterson and his squad. But again, I think the Huskies are a little bit out for revenge here. Seattle's certainly not an easy place to play, and I think their defense, kind of like we mentioned with Oregon, kind of like we mentioned with Arizona State, I think they step up big against a Colorado offense I think struggles a little bit. Washington's always been known for their defense, has been thriving under their defense the past few years, and the man responsible for it, Jimmy Lake, is now the Washington head coach. Defense will be the strength for the Huskies this year, and they eat this Colorado offense up. And then in the final week of the season, I do believe they fall to Utah and the Utes. They lost to Utah 45-15 in 2019. And again, I know Utah loses so much. I know Utah loses so much offensively and defensively from a team that went 11-3 and was 1 win away from the college football playoff. I get that. But they are still led by Kyle Whittingham. They own that coaching edge. They are now going to be more than likely be led by Jake Bentley, the transfer quarterback from South Carolina. They own the quarterback edge. And while their defense only returns 2 starters, I might still give that edge to Utah because Kyle Whittingham's defenses are always some of the best within the Pac-12 year in and year out. So they lost by 30 last year. Maybe it's a little closer, especially with this game being at home, but I do believe they fall to the Utes yet again. And that means Karl Dorrell and his Colorado Buffaloes go 2-6 6-10 in his first season in Boulder. And of course, we are including all those wins from the non-conference, which means at the end of the day, if you don't count those, we do have the Buffaloes going winless in conference play. And I know that's a major disappointment for some, but it probably does not come as a surprise to some. The Buffaloes were dealt a horrible, horrible hand, very similar to what Michigan State was dealt. They kind of swapped coaches, or at least Mel Tucker went to Michigan State, and now they had to hire Karl Dorrell here in Boulder. So both were dealt horrible hands in terms of the timing, in terms of the situation, and of course, this entire pandemic that has taken the world by storm. I do believe, though, that in a few years, Karl Dorrell can have Colorado contending within the Pac-12. He can have them contending for a spot in the postseason. But he's got to pay his dues, and he's got to go through some major growing pains and major struggles in a year that seems to be over before it even began. So guys, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, and share our videos. And also make sure to check out everything down in the description below, where you can follow us on our social media pages over on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and also visit our official website, thegridironexpert.com, for some exclusive news, content, and analysis that you will not find anywhere else. And once again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.